accidents can happen at any time in a WWE ring. Some WWE superstars have found this out the hard way by almost dying inside the squared circle. Thankfully, all the superstars in this list managed to survive to tell the tale. They will always remember that fateful evening in question. But which times were they? Well, join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 WWE wrestlers who almost killed themselves in a ring. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily. Pitted John Cena against JBL for the WWE title in an I Quit match. Cena had just recently ascended to the top of the WWE card, and there was a lot of pressure on the young superstar to prove that the WWE made the right choice in making him the face of SmackDown. But the I Quit match that Cena was involved in was one of the bloodiest, most brutal matches in WWE history.
John Cena! Watch out! Oh my God!
Cena's blade job was so severe that he was absolutely covered in blood. It got everywhere. It looked like a crime scene. It was clearly too deep, and Cena was extremely lucky that he didn't cut an artery and pass out from the blood loss in the ring itself.
Words can't describe it, and I mean that. Words cannot describe the brutality here.
Number 9, Tyson Kidd's match with Samoa Joe. Now, just one move can result in a devastating career-ending injury, and this was certainly the case when Tyson Kidd wrestled Samoa Joe in a dark match in 2015. Joe would perform a muscle buster on Kidd, and this was a move that Joe had done in virtually every match for the past decade, but on this occasion, it went terribly wrong. Upon landing, Kidd was paralyzed in the ring and he suffered a spinal cord concussion. Kidd would be forced to step away from the ring and he would never wrestle again. Due to the nature of the injury, Kidd was lucky to survive. Since his injury, he has taken on a backstage role in WWE, working as an agent and producing matches for a number of top superstars in the WWE. Number 8, Chris Jericho at TLC 2009. In 2020, Chris Jericho came forward to reveal that he almost died in a TLC match back in 2009. Jericho had stated that during his match at the TLC pay-per-view, which involved him teaming with The Big Show to take on DX for the tag titles, a notable spot in the match almost resulted in his death. Jericho was on The Big Show's shoulders when Shawn Michaels would hit a sweet chin music on The Big Show, resulting in Jericho falling off The Big Show's shoulders to the outside.
This was not good for Jericho.
Now, Jericho was supposed to land safely through a table, but his face smashed off the table in a brutal landing. Jericho revealed on Twitter that he almost died from the incident. Number 7, Droz on SmackDown in 1999. Droz was one of the brightest young superstars in the WWE back in 1999. Therefore, his injury and subsequent retirement from the ring hit even harder for fans. Droz was wrestling a match against D'Lo Brown when D'Lo went for a running powerbomb on Droz, but sadly he couldn't get a solid grip on him, and this resulted in Droz landing right on his head. Droz broke 2 bones in his neck and was rushed to hospital for immediate surgery. He would end up losing movement below his neck, and it was a miracle that he didn't die in the ring. Number 6, The Undertaker's match with Goldberg. And when The Undertaker and Goldberg collided in 2019, it was seen as a dream match for many fans, particularly those who grew up in the Attitude Era. However, what we got was a disaster of a match which almost resulted in the end of one of the most legendary superstars in WWE history. As during the match, Goldberg would go for his trademark jackhammer on The Undertaker, but Taker was simply too heavy, and this resulted in Taker being dropped right on his head.
There's no way Goldberg's going to be able to do this to The Undertaker! Oh my God!
There was immediate fear from fans and WWE management backstage that The Undertaker was seriously hurt, or even worse, dead. A 300-pound man being dropped on his head was never going to...
Look, I'm going to be frank with you. You are missing out on
hundreds of thousands, maybe $1 million or more.
And well, and according to The Undertaker himself, he was 2 inches away from the very end. Speaking on the Last Ride documentary, Taker revealed, "I was 2 inches away from making my wife a widow, my kids fatherless." Luckily, The Undertaker was okay and able to return to the ring for a number of matches before his official retirement in 2020. Number 5, Gangrel on Raw in 1999. 1999 was responsible for a number of infamous segments, and some of these were WWE truly pushing the boundaries of what a wrestling product can and should be. One of these segments involved the stable known as the Ministry of Darkness, as in the segment, the Ministry would hang Gangrel from the ring ropes in the hopes of getting Gangrel and the rest of the Brood to join the Dark Stable.
Tossing Gangrel off the apron!
Now, for whatever reason, WWE didn't rig the rope on this occasion, and it meant that Gangrel was actually hanging from the ropes. According to himself, he was slipping in and out of consciousness. Gangrel will discuss the incident during an interview with X-Pac during a special appearance on his radio show, revealing,
"Remember the boss man who's going to bring the Brood into the ministry?
Yeah.
Threw me over the rope with the thing?
Yes.
Richie told him, don't use that rope. Don't use it. It was a brand new rope. And they wanted to do it anyway. So they wanted to do that angle. So they threw me over. And then I bounced off the apron, but the rope cinched up. I remember sitting there on TV and everything was just going away. And I made my peace with God, you know.
Gangrel went on to reveal that it was Mideon who noticed that something was seriously wrong and came to the aid of Gangrel at the last second. Now, Gangrel was extremely lucky to walk away from the spot, and if Mideon didn't step in, the repercussions for the WWE due to their negligence would have been extremely severe. Number 4, Seth Rollins' cage spike. The modern WWE cages use a mechanism involving spikes which come down to the ring to secure the cage safely in place. However, in 2014, this mechanism almost suffered a major casualty. During a segment on Raw, the Authority would trap Roman Reigns in a steel cage, and as the cage was being lowered, Seth Rollins attempted to sneak back into the ring. However, Rollins was inches away from being impaled on one of the spikes, but he was smart enough to quickly abandon the spot at the last second. Number 3, Randy Orton at No Mercy in 2005. And one of the top matches on the pay-per-view card was a handicap casket match between Randy and Bob Orton taking on The Undertaker. Following the Ortons winning the match, they would lock The Undertaker in the casket and set it alight. Come on now! Oh my God! Somebody get out here! But this, however, almost resulted in Randy Orton being burnt alive. Orton discussed the incident during an episode of WWE Untold and revealed,
"So I'm dumping all this kerosene all over this casket, and it's dripping everywhere, and it's splashing, and it's hitting me, and it's on my boots, and I didn't even realize it, but my boots up to my knees were soaked in kerosene. I light it on fire, and I think, if I remember correctly, as I did that, I stepped back just in the nick of time where you saw the fire take over the casket, and I think it missed the tips of my toes by like this much."
Orton was extremely lucky to come out of the match without any burns. WWE are always careful when using an element such as fire, as it will always have safety regulations in place in case anything goes wrong. Number 2, Chuck Austin. Back in 1990, before a WWE Superstars taping, a tag match would take place which featured the Rockers taking on the Team of the Genius and the relatively unknown WWE wrestler Chuck Austin. During the match, one half of the Rockers, Marty Jannetty, would hit Austin with the Rocker Dropper.
After hitting the mat, Chuck Austin lay motionless.
This sadly left Austin paralyzed in the middle of the ring with a broken ligament. And number 1, Eddie Guerrero at Judgment Day in 2004. Eddie Guerrero's match with JBL in this pay-per-view is well established for being one of the bloodiest matches in WWE history. In the match, JBL would hit Eddie with a sickening chair shot.
Steel chair! Careful, balls are right out there in front of you!
Eddie would blade, but this wasn't a normal blade job. He managed to cut a major artery and in the process create one of the bloodiest scenes to ever be seen on WWE programming. Eddie was lucky not to have died from the blood loss in the middle of the ring, and once the match was over, there was a sense of urgency backstage to get Eddie the help he needed. Bruce Pritchard discussed how serious his blood loss was during an episode of his Something to Wrestle podcast. He revealed, "It was just an accident. I don't think that anybody thought it was going to be as bad as it was.
And when you gotta go with it, he's gonna take it all the way through the match and not waver. The backstage afterwards was hairy because Eddie didn't go into shock, but it was to the point where we felt we gotta get him to the hospital to get stitches or staples or whatever he's gonna need versus trying to do it here so they can give him fluids and give him everything else. He had lost so much blood. The medical personnel in the back, and we had them in the trainer's room, they started putting IVs in him. Eddie would eventually go to a local hospital, and thankfully he didn't suffer any long-term damage from the extensive loss. But there you have it, folks. 10 WW. I'm in